Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a breaking news edition of Birds 365 Football 24/7 here. The Eagles have officially hired their offensive coordinator, and it is Sean Mannion, 33-year-old former quarterback who played 8 seasons in the NFL. He was drafted in the 3rd round out of Oregon State. He played under Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Stefanski, and Clint Kubiak. And he is a fast riser, as they're dubbing him, coach right now in the National Football League. LaFleur called him a guy who goes above and beyond, and somebody in the Packers called him a future head coach. Well, now he's officially the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm joined now by John McMullen, host of Birds 365, Eagles beat reporter. John, coming right to you, man, your initial reaction on the Eagles hiring of Sean Mannion to be the next offensive coordinator of the team.
Yeah, very interesting hire, I think, from that perspective. At least it brings a little bit of juice, a little bit of excitement. Fast risers, you mentioned, only been a coach for 2 years, was a coaching assistant. Then he got the quarterback's coach job. I've been told that, his ability to get Malik Willis up to play when Jordan Love was injured this season. Malik Willis, I think, is going to make a lot of money this offseason as a free agent because of how he developed as a backup with the Packers. And Sean Mannion got a lot of credit for that. But you're coming off, let's be honest, you're coming off a year in which the offensive coordinator was criticized for his lack of experience. And remember, Kevin's been coaching for 14 years or whatever, but was a first-time play caller. So obviously, Sean Mannion has no experience as a play caller, at the line of scrimmage when he did play, and he didn't play a lot as a backup, but he did play. He got to handle things at the line of scrimmage on occasion, but that's not the same of sequencing and doing all the things you need to do as a play caller. So, maybe that kind of explains what we were talking about on Birds 365. The Eagles will debate whether Nick Sirianni should call the plays or Sean Mannion should call the plays, but that's for down the road as they try to figure out that. But it is interesting. I mean, it's been 4.5 years, and Nick Sirianni has said multiple times he doesn't want it. He doesn't want play calling. So unless something has changed, it'll be interesting how that's handled and what that means for the new offensive coordinator. But ultimately, it came down to the Final Four. The Mount Rushmore: Sean Mannion, Jim Bob Cooter, Josh Grzard, and Jared Johnson. And Sean Mannion comes out the winner. 2 years of coaching experience, 33 years old. And you can look at that 2 ways. He played in 2023. So from the standpoint, you could look at that as a positive of being able to connect with players easier, almost a peer. On the other side, you can look at it as, does he have the gravitas to keep everybody on the same page? So going to be an interesting hire at the bare minimum, and that's pretty exciting.
John, you think the negatives that you laid out, I mean, look, I honestly feel pretty good about the hire. I can't judge it fully. I mean, the guy has no coaching experience. So, he's got 2 years. He's never played. So it's tough to make a grandiose, proclamation about what he will or will not be. But from the looks of it on paper, I like it, John. I mean, this is a guy who's coached under all the big-time under all the big-time, offensive coaches in the league. He coached with Matt LaFleur, who I read the story that was put out a little earlier today about him. LaFleur basically didn't want to let him out the building when he heard he wanted to become a coach, and he heard his pitch. Now, maybe that's all fodder, but that was out there. But he is unproven as a play caller, John. Do you think that negative is too big to look past and see some of the potential upsides and who Sean Mannion could be? I got to be honest, John. I freaking like the hire, and I've been pretty doom and gloom on this whole process for the Eagles. I like the hire. No, did I lose you? 1 second, John. I can't hear you. John, you there? Uh-oh. I lost Johnny Mack. Let me see if I can get him back in here. I don't know where Johnny Mack went. John will join me right back in here. I'm not sure what he heard or what he didn't, but I like to hire guys. Let me give it to you the rundown. He's 33 years old. 33 years old. All right. He played 8 seasons in the NFL. Drafted out of Oregon State. He's the Pac-12 all-time passing yards leader, 13,000 yards and 83 touchdowns. Third-round draft pick in the 2015 NFL draft. He went to the St. Louis Rams at the time, 89th overall. He played with the Rams, the Vikings, and the Seahawks. Those were his 3 teams in the NFL. 14 games, only 2 starts, 573 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks. And then he played under McVay, O'Connell, Stefanski, and Kubiak. In 24, he became the Packers offensive assistant, hired by Matt LaFleur, and he was promoted to the Packers quarterback coach in 2025. He's going to be the offensive coordinator for the East-West Shrine Bowl for the West team, which will be this summer, or maybe coming up here. I forget when the East-West Shrine Bowl is. And now he is your Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator. All right, he's one of these guys who's been highly talked about, upcoming type of guy. LaFleur called him a guy who goes above and beyond the call of duty. All right, a Packers source say he's a future head coach in the making. McVay coaching tree connection. All right, maybe he brings an innovative scheme. I like the hire guy. Look, I can't make a grandiose proclamation that he's going to be perfect. He's never called plays, but I don't think it's bad looking on the surface. Let's get John back in here to answer me. J-Mac, do I got you back, brother?
Yeah, I popped up Nick Sirianni's comments, so I don't know if you want to go on X and read that to people, but I think that bumped me off when I cut that press release. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah, what was it, John? You released a release?
Nick Sirianni gave a statement. So if you go to X, it'll be on there under the Eagle. So
I'm not sure if you heard what I said, John, but you can respond to that now if you heard it.
Not well. When I got bumped, you were talking about him being a good hire, and maybe he is. And
what I asked though was, is the negative there too much to look past coming off of the year they just did? Because I like some of his resume. I like where he's going. I like hearing what you hear about him, but I also understand where the team just was, and now you have another play caller that's never called plays before. Is that negative too big, in your opinion, too big of a risk here for this team?
Potentially, but I do think and I've written about this for many years, dating back to when Derek Fisher became a coach in the NBA, basically straight off his playing career. And I advocated here for Josh McCown when he was thinking about moving on, going right. We had talked about that a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, about how I don't understand when people talk about experience and they'll say, and you'll see it, they'll say he's only got 2 years of coaching experience, and they don't factor in the years that he did play on the field. And I think that matters. I mean, I don't think there's any better way to learn to play football than being on the field playing football. Now, you also have to be able to teach others and do all that stuff. And as I said, the sequencing and things like that, which are some of the important things with play calling, are things you only learn through experience play calling, similar to doing things on the field. So I can't expect him to be one of the NFL's best play callers on day one, coming from his background. So it is curious from that standpoint. When you heard about all the boxes the Eagles were looking at, and the Mike McDaniels of the world, the Brian Dabolls of the world, who do have extensive experience. But once you weren't able to get those guys, to shift gears, I do like that part of it, and just say, all right, we're going to interview a bunch of people, and the best guy, we think. But, the second part is, look, the positives are the upside of this guy. And for all the nice things that Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur have said about him, if he does reach that upside, it's probably not going to be here. So, we've talked about this cycle the Eagles are on. I don't know if that cycle changes. So if lightning strikes and they become what they were in 2024 and they're back in the Super Bowl, well, he's probably going to be a head coach after 3 years of coaching experience, and it's not going to be here. So from that standpoint, now I get you can't operate with that mentality, but to me, this is another chance for this team to be patient with a young coach. The problem is, they had a guy in the building and he's still in the building, for 5 years, and they knew Kevin Patullo and they had no patience. Are they going to have patience with Sean Mannion? I don't know. That's been my big criticism of this group the entire time. So
Right.
why are they going to all of a sudden show patience for the growing pains? And I'll point that towards the fans and media as well. Are you guys going to show patience? I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. Because there will be mistakes.
Yeah, but I want to put in the fans, John. I think the first person there you got to ask that question is Jeffrey Lurie. I mean, the fans can be impatient all they want. They're not the decision makers,
No, yeah, and it is Jeffrey Lurie above all else. And I've said, he's the eye of this storm. I've said it pretty consistently during this search. Have they had to come to Jesus moment and said, we got to stop being impatient? I guess it's possible, but there will be. It's like it's having a rookie player. It's the same thing. There are going to be moments where he's got to grow on the job, and if that's not expected or that's not part of this process, they probably made a poor decision. If they're willing to learn and they believe in this, if they're willing to be patient and they believe in this guy's upside, then I think it's a really good hire.
Me too.
But
it's a good point by you. Here, I'm going to read Nick Sirianni's statement, John, that Sirianni put out. Here's Nick. I'm thrilled to have Sean Mannion on board as the new offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. My goal throughout this process was to operate with an open mind regarding the future of our offense to find the best fit for the Eagles. Over the last few weeks, I had an opportunity to meet with a number of talented candidates and great offensive minds. I am appreciative of the time I was able to spend with each of them. Some came with years of experience running an offense and calling plays. Others were young, sharp, and dynamic coaches on the rise. I felt it was important to be patient and thorough to allow the right fit to reveal himself to us. Sean did just that. It was quickly apparent in the meeting with Sean that he is a bright young coach with a tremendous future ahead of him in this league. I was impressed by his systematic views on offensive football and his strategic approach. Sean's 2 years in the NFL have provided him a great opportunity to learn from and grow alongside some of the best coaches in the game. As a result, he has a wealth of knowledge and experience that will be invaluable to our team moving forward. I can't wait to see Sean with our team, and I want to welcome him and his wife, Megan, to the Eagles family. There is Nick Sirianni's statement on the hiring of Sean Mannion. John, any response to that? And then I have a couple questions for you on the hire.
It's a nice statement, and we're going to see where it was. But, I think the important part and indications are from my what I've been told is he is going to call plays. So,
Sean is okay. That was definitely a big question here. Will he call plays? You think he will, right?
It's not official from any standpoint, but I've been told that he's expected to call plays. So, and that certainly resonates with what Nick Sirianni has told me multiple times over the past 4 years, that he doesn't want to call plays. So I think if that's the case and that's how it actually unfolds that way, I think it's all going to come down to that. It really is. Is he good at it? Is he a natural? Or is he not good at it? And, in a lot of ways, I look at this hire as boom or bust.
Yeah, well, that's this team, isn't it, John? They're boom or bust team. They either collapse or they win the Super Bowl, or they have the greatest half of football and then they have a bad half of football. That's this team. They're boom or bust. John, question for you. Were the Eagles, do you think they were unable to get their guy? Do you think, I don't think this was their guy, but do you think they maybe found a hidden gem here Is this a settle? How do you view this from that perspective?
Well, he was not on top of their list when they started it. I think that's fair to say.
I don't think he's on top of anybody's list. He's an under the radar type of guy.
No, so that's fine. You're so many times. I often compare it to the draft as well. It's so rare where you get your first option because there is so much competition. And that's the case in here. And obviously, Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll were the two guys that they targeted, number one and number two, or maybe 1 and 1A. And then from there, when it became clear they couldn't get either of those, they went in a different direction. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We've talked about the head coaching searches, and that's worked out well for them when they go down to their contingencies. So maybe the same thing happens here. I don't think you can say, oh, you didn't get Mike McDaniel, so it's a failure. There's probably some positives to Sean Mannion that Mike McDaniel doesn't have. And we'll see how it shakes out. All you can do, you got to give him an opportunity, and you got to see what he's able to do. And it's interesting. It's bold. I like that. It's bold. I mean, I'll have to do some research after
John,
I get off the air.
You know what it reminds me of, dude? It reminds me of what you always say, the big name trap. And I know it's a little different here, but I think everybody wants to be ood and odd all the time about every hire and every I think this guy, again, we don't know, but I like the boomer bust. I'd rather be boomer bust than live in the middle. I mean,
Well, yeah, I don't know if I certainly can't come up with somebody off the top of my head with such little experience that got a job at this level so quickly.
With big expectation, I'll add.
Yeah. So I mean, it's even more. You say rightfully so. That's what the Eagles have been, boom or bust, and you're right. But I mean, this is like the microscope on this team is not changing. And you're coming off experience in this very thing with a guy who I said has been coaching for a long time, but only a first-year play caller, and now you're shifting to a coach with virtually no experience that's a first-year play caller. So those questions are not going to stop, and it's similar to what happened last year from the standpoint of, well, what if they do talk AJ Brown back? What if Lane Johnson is back? You're still going to have that narrative of they have the best talent in the NFL, and if you start to struggle, well, guess who's going to be the scapegoat? That first-time play caller's got no experience.
I have a pushback to that right now, and it's not that I don't think there's going to be a scapegoat. This is the 6th offensive coordinator with Nick Sirianni. At what point are people going to say it's not the coach? It's not the head coach. I mean, are we going to use another I think this is it. It's going to work, or they're all going to get blown out, and Sean won't be the scapegoat.
Well, from the standpoint, yeah, you might be right. They may all be blown out, so you'll have a larger group. But the end game is still the same. It's still the same impatience. It's still the same unwillingness to let people grow in a position. That's my concern. That's my biggest concern. I don't have any doubt that Sean Mannion is a very smart football guy, because I've heard that for years, dating back to, as I said, Sean McVay. I remember, when Jared Goff was struggling early in his career, and there were some people in Los Angeles saying Sean Mannion should be the starting quarterback, and they talked about how smart he was, and and then Jared kind of figured it out a little bit and obviously the number 1 overall pick. And then, I remember O'Connell talking about him distinctly, and I remember Matt LaFleur talking about him, and they all raved about his his football intelligence, his football IQ, all that kind of stuff, and just how he was a coach on the field, that kind of stuff. And now he's a coach, so we're going to see how that translates. And I do think it's unfair that people don't look at the playing experience. Now, he played whatever, he didn't play all those 8, 9 years, whatever it was, but he's a backup and he's around and he's, in the offensive meetings. And obviously he's the kind of guy. And, similar, that's what people are doing. You see it with Davis Webb. You see it with a guy who was in the finalist category, the Jared Johnson. They're looking at backup quarterbacks like they look at backup catchers in baseball to be managers. They're looking at backup quarterbacks as guys who understand the offense. And if they have that ability to connect with people and teach people, that maybe they could be good coaches. That's what a lot of things are going for. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, a lot of people forget he was the third round. He was the third round quarterback.
Yeah, I said that reminds me of Kellen Moore, J-Mac. This reminds me of Kellen Moore.
Yeah, Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore. So Doug Nussmeier was a big time college quarterback. Alex Tanney's getting a interview for the offensive coordinator job with the Giants now. And a couple of years ago he was blown out here. He's a former longtime backup quarterback. So many of the league, so much of the league is looking for that type of guy. And look, there is some demonstrated performance. That's a big injury, Jordan Love. And I don't think there was any backup quarterback in football that played better than Malik Willis. I really don't.
I agree. He was ready to go, dude. John, what do you think what does a Sean Mannion staff look like? You heard a lot of rumblings about somebody that, people wanted to bring their own guys in. Do you think he's got a say in QB coach, wide receiver coach, O-line coach, Jeff Stoutland, all those things? What do you think that looks like with the hiring of Sean Mannion?
Yeah, that part of it, I don't think, that's where you do need experience to have like a group of guys that you have sort of in the Rolodex, and he just doesn't have the experience to have that. So I expect the offensive staff to look very similar to what it was. And that might upset some people. In the case of Jeff Stoutland, probably not. But yeah, that's one area. I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't thinking about it. That's where that was one of the criticisms of when they hired Nick Sirianni, is that his Rolodex wasn't that big when it came to getting assistant coaches. And how he would have to go out and get guys that Nick would interview, and then Nick would make the decision on who to hire. So, yeah, I mean, he just hasn't been coaching enough to have that group, to have like a whole group ready to go to be brought in as assistant coaches. So I think it's going to look very similar to what it has.
John, he played in, McVay, O'Connell, Stefanski. Does I know he doesn't have play calling experience. Does learning from, I'll put quote unquote elite offensive minds like that not replace, I don't know what the right word is there, but does it give you some experience that maybe it's different than play calling, but does it make up for some of that lack of experience that you would, that he doesn't have with play calling, just playing under guys like that, being on teams like that, being a part of offenses like that, especially when you hear people talk as highly as they have, like you just mentioned. I mean, and you hear someone on the floor staff saying he's a future head coach in the making. So he is obviously an impressive guy when you talk to him. Do you think that experience makes up for any of the lack of play calling experience?
No, I mean, that's gonna be it. Because I got very focused on, and me, most of play calling is done during the week, and he'll have a lot of help. And I'm sure Nick will be very involved, and that will probably upset some people. And he'll have the card, and he'll have the Cheesecake Factory menu, and he'll pick the plays. And so I said, well, and I asked a bunch of different guys. I said, I've been told for years 90% of this stuff is done during the week. So what is the difference? What makes the top tier play callers the best, and what makes them better than just the average Joe? And pretty much everyone went to sequencing, and it's about setting up one play to set up another play down the road. And that's the kind of stuff you have to have a feel for in the moment. And always be thinking of 2-3 plays ahead and thinking, well, if I do this, I can do this. And that's the last part of it, that when you look at the good play callers, the Ben Johnsons, whoever you want to talk about Kyle Shanahan, although I think Kyle's more design and concepts than actual play calls. So there's different ways he can do it, and maybe he can excel in the design part more than. But I think the actual play calling, I think that comes with experience, and you get better and better. Just like playing the quarterback position. I mean, you're not going to go out there. You might be good. You might be Jaden Daniels in year one, but you still got a shitload to learn. So it's not like he can't be good, but there will be mistakes, and he's going to have to grow into the job.
We'll see. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair way to look at it. I'll remind everybody, though, it's the sixth OC. At what I think everybody listening right now, there's no more scapegoat in every offensive coordinator that comes in here. All right. So this is it now. I think that at least that's how I feel. I understand there's going to be reason to scapegoat him because he's never been a play caller, but eventually the head of the snake will have to be addressed. Whether you put that on Nick, you put that on Jalen, I don't really care who you put it on, but it's going to have to be addressed bigger than the play caller. John, with this guy coming in, are you expecting an offensive change? Are you expecting a build on top of what Nick Sirianni's offense has been? Are you expecting a different version of Jalen Hurts, or maybe a more evolved version of Jalen Hurts? What changes do you think is coming, if any, other than a play caller, to this offense with the hiring of Sean Mannion?
Look, I'm going to be honest here. I think it's going to be a very similar offense. I think it's not going to change dramatically until you change the quarterback. I mean, we've been through it with 5 guys, and you think the 33-year-old with 2 years experience is going to change?
Well, it can be better. Will you give me that? I mean, it can be better. Maybe the
style. Yeah, but better from an execution standpoint. Yes, of course it can be. That's the goal, to get guys playing at a higher level and executing back to their reputations, and they will be a better offense if that happens. But you're talking about different styles of offense? No, I no.
Well, I mean, the reason I asked that is because of, you see where he comes from, McVay, where you got play action, you got pre-snap motion, you got, it's the spread offense. That's what they do out there, and that's where a lot of his experience lies. So do you not expect him to bring any of that, or like, that's what I don't know. Did they hire him just because they think he's a smart guy, which I don't have a problem with if that's the case. I've always said I want to get a smart offensive guy who can adapt and sees the game from a good perspective and, has a good mindset. I don't necessarily want a guy who wants to jam players into his mold of an offense, but that is his, where he comes. So how much of that do you expect to be at least attempted this year, John?
Well, I think it will be attempted, and it was attempted this year. I mean, people just weren't happy with the results. They went under center far more than they've ever done before. They tried to marry the running game up with the passing game to make everything look the same and try to manipulate people that way. So they did a lot of things this year that I think people just ignored because they weren't that successful. And they've been trying to evolve this thing for years, and they have evolved to a significant degree. I mean, if you look at 2021 versus 2025, they have evolved. But from the standpoint of changing to play action, and I'll remind you, Sean McVay changed his whole philosophy this year because
right.
he didn't have as many receivers as he typically had in the past, couldn't play all the 11 personnel, and led the league in 13 personnel. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the definition of good coaching. So I think Sean Mannion will come in here and do and realize pretty quickly the best way to win with this particular group is to make sure the run game is efficient and do some of the things that they were successful in their run to Super Bowl 57 and Super Bowl 59. I mean, and down the road it might turn in if he's here, which I'm trying to find a path where he could be here for 5 years, which I just don't see. But if you change to a different style of quarterback, the offense will change. Until then, it's probably not going to change that much.
John, Mannion has history with quarterbacks. He was a former quarterback himself, a third-round draft pick, as you mentioned earlier in this segment, drafted to the St. Louis Rams at the time in 2015, the 89th overall pick in the draft. He was the quarterback coach in Green Bay. I thought Jordan Love had one of his best seasons. I know he was hurt for some time, but I thought he was playing really good football. You mentioned Malik Willis comes in, plays good football. How much of this hire, one, is about Jalen Hurts? And how much of this hire do you think will help Jalen Hurts?
Well, we're going to have to see. Obviously, so much about coaching is about connecting with the players, and we're going to see. I mean, like I said, he's a 33-year-old guy. You can look at it as a positive way and saying, he's basically a peer of Jalen Hurts and all the other players. And he's 2 years off being on the football field himself. So that could help as far as connection. It could also hinder as far as being the bad cop, so to speak, when you have to correct people in meetings and try to coach them hard. Now, all evidence, I've never bought into some of the narratives that Jalen Hurts doesn't like this, doesn't like that, simply because he's always thrived in hard coaching environments. He pretty much covets it, dating back to his days with his father. He always enjoys hard coaching, so I don't expect it to be an issue. They are different styles of quarterbacks. That's kind of interesting. Sean's 6'6". He's like, a big drop back passer, which is kind of out of vogue.
6'6", 230, and 33 years old. He's like 6 years older than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. So, he's certainly a different style of quarterback. So you wonder, I used to ask Aaron Moorhead, because Aaron Moorhead's a very big receiver. So I used to ask him, how hard is it for you to coach the small guys, the guys, he's this big guy with this big body and, 50-50 contested catches, that kind of stuff. How do you coach the jitterbug type guys, just the quick guys and he admitted, you gotta really work at it because it's not natural to you. And I would imagine, using that experience, that Sean will have the same sort of thought process. He's a different style of quarterback, so he has to, really hone in on trying to help Jalen Hurts as much as possible.
I agree. I think this is a great hire in that I think this guy has a bright future. Where I think the problem lies is the team that hired him, and it's by no fault of Sean Mannion. But my question would be this, John, because I feel pretty good, honestly, about the hire. Maybe I'm too optimistic. That's fine too. Can a guy with 2 years of coaching experience run an offense that's a legitimate Super Bowl contender? If this guy gets hired somewhere where the expectations aren't what they are in Philly, I think he's got a very bright future. But as you point out, the impatience, the rabid fan base, the expectation, not only of the fan base, but of the owner, of the GM, of the organization at large. That to me is where I think the problem could lie. Can a guy with 2 years experience man the offense that for a team that wants to go to the Super Bowl? That's where I think, there's a disconnect, or at least a challenge that will have to be overcome.
Yeah, there's not a lot of examples of it. I'll tell you that. Yeah, this is sort of like uncharted territory. It really is. You can go down the history of the Super Bowl. I bet you don't find a coordinator with 2 years experience in coaching.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. 33 years old, 2 years coaching, John. That's pretty wild. But listen, it is what it is. All right, John, let me rattle off some supers to your brother. See what you say to him. Here's Tyler. Zander, you and a few in Sills' chat talked me back into the middle on him. I think Nick is fired by week 8 if we are 3-5. Reminds me of getting Andy Reid. Interesting.
Well, Andy Reid was the head coach, so remember that.
I do think there's going to be more pressure on Nick, though, with this, John. I don't think this is going to be as simple as scapegoat the OC again.
Well, yeah, a lot of people brought up the Chip Kelly incident, but Chip Kelly mindset during his final year where, Jeffrey Lurie raised his arms and said, all right, let's give you what you want. Seems like this is a Nick hire. Let's give you what you want. Is he doing that again? And, quite possibly at the end of the season or even before, if this goes poorly, yeah, this could cost Nick his job. I should say also, as I mentioned, I got word, but it wasn't official. Not that it's official, but Diana Rossini's been on top of this coaching thing, but better than I think anybody else from the Eagles. And she posted that new Eagles offensive coordinator Sean Mannion will be calling plays. So there you have it.
Good. Sean Mannion calling plays. Good stuff. Tyler, thank you for the super chat, brother. Here's Idle. Should have hired Kingsbury. Boy, John, people are like in love with Kingsbury. I don't really get it, what the love fest is with him, but I'm not upset that they didn't get Kingsbury. I'll say that.
Well, I don't get the love fest with anybody or the hate fest with anybody.
That's fair too. It's fair too. All right,
I don't know where you get your information to have a love fest to everybody out there, including
people
myself.
Look at Kingsbury, they look at Jaden, they look at Patrick Mahomes in college. They look at what he's accomplished. I mean, he's done some good things. That's fair to say.
Well, and I said the same thing with Malik Willis, but I'll never go off the. I give the players the credit first. I'll never waver on that. Yeah, I will never, ever waver on that.
I respect your consistency on it, no doubt. Here's Pumper. All right, how many hitch routes is he calling next season? That's the most important question. It's a very Pumper comment.
Yeah, I know. The hitch stuff has been widely overstated, but I digress.
Here is Kimberly. What's up, Kimberly? Need to give a guy a shot. Don't know who he is yet. I think that's everybody, Kimberly. I agree completely.
Yeah, I think that's a good philosophy to have. I unfortunately, not a lot of people have that.
It's true. Here's Gabe. Big question here. Is he going to actually have input on this offense, or is he just a puppet in Nick's scheme? I really hope they let him apply his knowledge. Well, knowledge is not worth much if it's not applied knowledge. John, what do you say?
Yeah, I don't like the phrasing. I mean, what like is, and I don't know, pick your favorite coach. Is Mike LaFleur, who might be the head coach of Arizona quickly, is he a puppet to Sean McVay? Was Mike McDaniel a puppet to Kyle Shanahan? Was any offense. The point is, like, you can't be a puppet to the head coach because you're an employee of the head coach. That's kind of the definition. We're all puppets. I'm a puppet to you.
In some way, we're all puppets, John. And
it's like, where is this situation where the offensive coordinator has more power than the head coach? Where's that ever existed?
Right. Right.
I don't know where people go with that. So I mean, the puppet word is insulting. You're an employee of the team, and there's a flow chart to every organization,
Right.
and you're under the head coach. The head coach is in charge of you. So if you want to call that a puppet, I guess he's going to be a puppet.
Here's JD3. Agree, John. Here's JD3. Very telling that they didn't get a dual threat experienced coach. This team isn't building for Hurts long term. I love it. That's
Dual threat. It's the first time I've heard dual threat coach. But I don't think, the way the NFL is, players come and go. So if you find a coach who's going to be, around for the long term, you're really, focused on at best, 3-year increments at any time. So I don't think there's and with the upheaval in the coaching ranks, as we talked about today, how many new offensive coordinators there are, there's even more upheaval in the coaching ranks now in the NFL than the player ranks. It's like, why is anybody talking about 5-7 years down the road? It's
focus on 1 year at a time, right?
Exactly.
Very true. Here, all right, JD, thanks, dude. Here's Hangry Dogs. Is Malik Willis a similar style quarterback as Hurts? To some extent. I mean, they're both mobile guys. Malik's got a big arm, but
yeah, to some extent. I mean, Malik's mobile more in, I would say, more in the realm of throwing off his mobility than I think Jalen's a better quarterback, but yeah, somewhat similar, but I wouldn't say tremendously similar. But they both can, they both can run, they both can throw.
Here's Eagle fan Clark. News alert. All 32 starting quarterbacks have limitations. Get off that narrative. It's such a cop-out. I don't think he was using it as a cop-out, but John, your response.
What do you mean? I don't, were we talking about somebody's limitation?
I think he's referring to you saying that the offense isn't going to change much with the quarterback that we have. If you wanted big, grandiose changes, West Coast offense, that type of thing, that's what you alluded to. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, well, if that's what he's talking about, well, yeah, I mean, that's why you're going to see a similar offense. I mean, yes, every quarterback has deficiencies. That's why you build the offense around the strengths of the quarterback. You don't build it around the deficiencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right. Good point. Here's Tyler. The youth could be long-term growth. Is this a Julian hire? Oh gosh, we got
Julian in charge. Now we got Julian. I hope Julian's listening. You got a shout out, buddy. Julian's choice.
All week, Julian. Here's Illuminati. I don't like that name. He will have the Eric Coryell offense like Martz.
Yeah. Okay. That is Illuminati. Yeah. Well, you better can he get Kurt Warner out of retirement? Can he still play?
Here's Impulsive CCC. What's up, brother? We bitched about not having a friend of Nick. We got it. Packers Nation is not happy. High risk, high reward. No cooter makes any man sad, though. J Mac, your response.
Yeah, well, that's a positive. It's not a friend of Nick. So I do think Jim Bob would have taken a lot of heat for being a friend of Nick. And look, if that's the reason they didn't hire him, that's probably the wrong reason. But I told you, those things are tough to overcome in a public-facing industry. You can call it unfair, and it is unfair, and you can say you shouldn't be worried by it, and you shouldn't be worried by it, and all that stuff is true. But then it seeps into your subconscious, and it's like, you really want to go through that again? And I'm not saying that's why they didn't hire Jim Bob, but I think it's at least plays a part, at the very least a small part.
Good point. All right, a couple more left, John. Here's Eric Holland. Mannion will be the head coach in 3 years. He's going to be Nick's replacement. Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, but you got to get the 3 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they have a good year, he's gone. He's a 1 year guy. I mean,
Yeah. How do you get that? How do you get the 3 years?
Yeah, I don't know. But
I can see.
Coach, you know how the league is, John. Once they dub somebody like that, man, it's only a matter of time.
Well, you got to be successful, but yeah, once they dub you and you are successful, that's the problem. I mean, if they go win the Super Bowl, he's a head coach next year. If they fail, Nick's probably fired. Are they going to elevate him to head coach? I doubt it, because if they have an unsuccessful year, that means he has an unsuccessful year as well. I honestly, I see a path for Sean Mannion to be a head coach. I don't see a path for Sean Mannion to be the head coach here.
Yeah, me neither.
I just don't. And the only one I can come up with is if Nick gets fired in season, and this is a complete Jeffrey Lurie hire, and he brought him in to be the heir apparent, but I don't get that feel at all.
Here's Bird Gang. I don't give a F how this is a John McMullen super chat right here. I don't give an F how smart this OC is. If the players don't execute like last year, it will not matter. It's on the players this year. Go Birds. There you go, John.
Well, it's always on the players.
That's a John McMullen.
I will agree with this. If they play like they played last year, Sean Mannion is screwed.
Yeah, John, they play like they played last year. You could say maybe make that comment about the whole coaching staff, a whole offensive staff, and that might include the quarterback. So we'll see. Here's Caleb. Caleb, what's up, dude? Said it last year and again, not to be negative, but there has never been a first-time play caller win a Super Bowl. Just being consistent. I don't hate it, though. It's a fair point. It's a very fair point.
I don't know if that's the case. I haven't done that research, but yeah, I this would be quite the story if a third-year coach, first-time play caller, first-time offensive coordinator, 33 years old, goes and wins the Super Bowl as a play caller. That sounds like some pie-in-the-sky shit. If you take the name off it, if you take the name of the team off it, and you said that, hey, a 33-year-old guy who was playing in the league 2 years ago is going to be a first-time play caller and win the Super Bowl, you get some cross-eyed looks.
Yeah, you would. There's no doubt about that. Here's the last one, Philly Don. Do you think Mannion will be able to bring in any of his own coaches? So we did mention this earlier, but John, just your response one more time for those who missed it. Wide receiver, offensive line. Jeff Stoutland's obviously a big name right now, John, in the media after the Jeff McClain report.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff is going to be pretty similar. That's the one thing where, experience in the coaching ranks is big when it comes to, having a Rolodex of coaches that you can go to. Sean just hasn't been doing it long enough to have an extensive network of potential assistant coaches. So I think, and they're all good coaches, so I wouldn't be upset with Jamal Singleton and Aaron Moorhead and Jeff Stoutland being back and Jason Michael, and I expect them to be back. As is usual, maybe you have a change at quarterbacks coach, maybe you don't. Maybe one or two guys, but I expect it to be pretty similar.
Yep, me too. All right, John. Appreciate everybody for the super chats. Boy, that was a lot of misery. Not all of them, but a good amount of misery from the great people of JAKIB Nation. Appreciate everybody being here. Don't forget to hit the like button. John, 2 questions left for you. John, are you surprised by this hire?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was growing in that direction. Once we got to this point and we started getting the second interviews talk, there was a lot of hype with Mannion. So, I mean, if you look at the 4 guys, the only one with significant experience, and it's not even significant when it comes to play calling, was Jim Bob. And I thought Jim Bob was going to be very difficult. So then it would come down to Mannion, Grizzard, and Johnson. And of that group, I did feel Mannion had the most momentum. But if you told me at the start of this, Sean Mannion was going to be the offensive coordinator, I would have laughed at you. So I think only this week, it was pretty clear the momentum was starting to grow towards him. When you look at the other three finalists, I would have hired Matt Nagy, but he wasn't a finalist. So they went the way they went, and he deserves the chance, and I'm going to give him a chance, and everybody should give him a chance. And maybe he's a whiz kid, and maybe he's just that smart and that good, and maybe he can do it.
We will see. John, I'm going to force you to do it. Grade the hire. Day one. You can change it. I get it. I know you don't like to do it. But just your initial grade of your thought on it.
Well, I'm going to give two grades. I'm going to give the grade for Sean Mannion, who I think, I've known about Sean for a while because he played in Minnesota, and I still have a lot of people there. So I've heard good things about Sean Mannion for a long time, back to when he was a player. So I'm going to give a B, maybe even a B plus for the guy. For the team, I'm going to give it D. I thought this was a shit show of a search. And look, I joked about the Mount Rushmore of finalists. I'll ask you guys, were you happy when you saw the names Sean Mannion and Jim Bob Cooter and Jared Johnson and Josh Grizzard as your final four?
10 teams, though, haven't hired made me think that the pool wasn't all that great. There wasn't anybody that people were jumping on outside of McDaniel and Dable.
Well, maybe that should be a teachable moment then, because the pool's never that great. The pool's never that great. And really, were Mike McDaniel that great or Brian Daboll that great? But the way the Eagles went through it, and whatever we ended up, 16, 17 days, in the last minute, they're trying to talk to Davis Webb. I mean, this is a contingency hire. This is not who they wanted, but he may be, now the hope is he ends up being better than the guys they wanted, which is certainly possible. It's happened in the past. It might happen again.
John, well done today. Good reaction here. Good look, quick 50-minute show. Your final thought on the Eagles' latest news, and then we will talk to you in the morning on Birds 365. Sean Mannion is the newest offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Exciting hire. I think it's as exciting as a hire. When you go 16, 17 days, you expect the wah-wah. I don't think he got the wah-wah, at least. I think he got, at least he got some excitement, some upside. So that's positive.
One more super chat. Let me read it to you, John. $20. Thanks, William. I like the hire. It's not always transitive, but I'll take a former player any day of the week. I hope Eagles Nation can give the man a chance. I wonder how this affects the A.J. Brown situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to I don't think he has any noticeable history with A.J., but, they're going to try to talk A.J. into coming back for one more year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And we're gonna see how Sean Mannion connects with players and things like that. But to the point of former players, 90% of coaches are former players, maybe more. So that everybody's a former coach. It's a former player at some level, either college or pro for the most part. So that's not rare. That maybe former NFL player. Certainly what's rare is former NFL player 2 years off his playing career. That's rare.
No doubt. Johnny Mac, great show, brother. I will talk to you in the morning on Birds 365. It is officially landed, John. Finally. All right, it has landed. Talk to you in the morning.
Finally. We can talk about something else. Well, not tomorrow. We'll have Caden Steele tomorrow to break down the entire search, which was extensive, circuitous, elongated. Yeah.
Any more words for me, John? I'm adding to my dictionaries.
It was very long. We'll just go. Yeah.
All right, John. Good stuff, man. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you in the morning.
All right. See y'all. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, John. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen, joining us right here on a special breaking news edition. Football 24/7 / Birds 365. A good reaction, a good breakdown. I think we hit every question, every initial question on the hiring of Sean Mannion. Okay? I told you guys during the show, and I understand why some people don't think it's or are not excited by the hire. I happen to like the hire. I think the toughest needle to thread with this hire is we're not a team in wait and see mode or in build mode, right? We're a team that we believe the window is open. And that to me is the hardest part to thread. But which I understand is a big thing. That's not lost on me that this team is in a window. This team's getting older. People think the window's closing. You have to capitalize on it. You have to take advantage of it. So it's not lost on me. But I like this hire, dude. I think you get a guy that's clearly, clearly a smart dude. You listen to some of the coaches. I mean, let me just rattle it off for everybody. All right, let's just reset the slate. I'll talk to you guys for a little bit about this hire. All right. Sean Mannion, here's the rundown. He's 33 years old, all right? Born in San Jose, California. That's maybe the biggest knock on him. Sorry to any of my Cali people out there. I'm just kidding. 6'6", 230. All right, played quarterback. He replaces Kevin Patullo, fired after their playoff loss to the 49ers. He played for 8 seasons in the National Football League between 2015 and 2023. Played his college ball at Oregon State. A Pac-12 all-time passing yards leader, 13,600 yards and 83 touchdowns. 2015 NFL draft, he was a third-round pick, 89th overall. Teams, he played for the Rams from 15 to 18, the Vikings from 19 to 21, and then 23, and the Seahawks were in 22. All right, career backup, he played under Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Stefanski, and Clint Kubiak. All right, in 2024 was his first coaching role. He was a Packers offensive assistant hired by Matt LaFleur. The story on Matt LaFleur is this. Okay, this is the story on Matt LaFleur. He wanted to go to LaFleur and said, I want to be a coach. Can I give you my pitch? I'm going to go and try and get hired somewhere. LaFleur said, I'll talk to you. I'll help you. He comes in and gives the pitch to LaFleur, and LaFleur said, I don't want you to leave the building. He went and interviewed a couple places, came back, ultimately became an offensive assistant with the Green Bay Packers. Matt LaFleur liked him very much. 2025, he was promoted. A sign of that confidence, a sign of that like for him. Promoted to the Packers quarterback coach, helped develop Love. Anybody who watched the Packers this year? Anybody watch them? Anybody watch the Packers at all this year? Jordan Love had a good year. I thought he played his best year yet in the NFL. Malik Willis. Jordan Love goes down. Malik Willis comes in. Everybody was talking about Malik Willis. Played well. Okay? He's also going to be the offensive coordinator for the West team in the East-West Shrine Bowl. All right? LaFleur called him a guy who goes above and beyond the call of duty. A Packers source said this. He's a future head coach in the making. He's a McVay coaching tree connection guy. Potentially brings innovation, scheme, different things there, maybe. You heard John kind of dismiss that. Never called plays. This is the number one question. Never called plays. All right, completely unproven as a play caller. Eagles' top targets, McDaniel and Dable, took other jobs, so Mannion was not plan A. The sixth Eagles OC here under Sirianni, that's a talking point in itself, guys. I mean, guys, I understand that the offensive coordinator is easy to criticize. I want everybody listening right now, every Eagle fan, we all understand something, right? We cannot blame the offensive coordinator every single fucking year. There's too many now. This is it. The buck stops here. If Sean Mannion and this offense doesn't work, I got news for you guys. It's not an offensive coordinator search next year. It's a new head coach, it's a new OC, and it's potentially a new quarterback. You can't – how many years are we going to do this, guys? Think about it. So the buck stops here. This is going to work or it's not going to work, and we're going to reset. So I think Nick knows that too. He's only 33 years old, all right? Only 33 years old, 6 years older than Hurts. What do you think that is a potential problem? Hurts is a guy that has a very mature demeanor. You know, a lot of people frame Jalen as a guy who acts above his age. You know, he's always spoken about being drawn to coaches that can teach him things, that'll coach him hard. Is the 33 to 27-year-old dynamic, could that be a problem? Maybe, but maybe not. You know, I always go to something Seth Joyner told me. It's not told me directly, but said on a show when he used to be at JAKIB. Seth Joyner said this, and I think it's the perfect way to think about coaches and players. Seth Joyner said this. He said, players play for coaches when the player believes the coach can make him better. A player will play for a coach when he believes he can make him better. If Jalen has that belief, I don't think the age will be a problem. All right, and then the big question. The question we'll be asking for the next 6 months, maybe even 9 months, maybe even 11 months up to the next playoffs next year. Can a guy with 2 years of coaching experience run an offense for a Super Bowl contender? That is the biggest question. I've always, a lot of people like to dub people Eagle honks, green eyes, Eagle hater. Maybe I'm wrong, but I try and be honest. I don't, maybe sometimes I'm Eagle honk, but that's because that's how I feel in that moment. Maybe sometimes I'm Eagle doom and gloom. That's how I feel in that moment. Right now, I feel like this is a pretty good hire for this team. I like the hire. I'm not doom and gloom about it at all. I think it's potential for Hurts to get, somebody that is a former quarterback, has been a part of offenses that have McVay, Kubiak, O'Connell. These are the offenses you hear. When Eagles fans bitch about the offense, what do we think about? Why doesn't it look like McVay? Why doesn't it look like O'Connell? Not with JJ. Why doesn't it look like one of those guys? Now we got a guy with that experience. Now he teams up with Jalen, with Nick, with this team. The first call I'm making tonight, if I'm the fucking Eagles, is A.J. Brown. A.J., I need you, man. We need you a part of it. We need you bought in. I need 22-23 A.J. Brown this year. What do we have to do to get you to buy in? That's the first call I'm making. Because if you get if A.J. Brown's shipped out of here and Dallas Goedert's not coming back, guess what, guys? I don't give a shit how good Sean Mannion is. It's going to be tough sledding to make your offense better when you lose guys like Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown in one offseason, and potentially Lane Johnson. That, to me, is the biggest area. I like the hire. I feel good about the hire. I'm not going to sit here and be blind to the obvious. Can you win a Super Bowl with a first-time play caller? I don't know. History would say no. But I like what he brings. We will see how it works out. If anybody has some comments or questions in the chat, I will take some of those right now. I want to thank all of you guys for being here. Got a great crowd in here. People love when news breaks in Eagle Land, as do I. So it comes late here on a Thursday evening, and we will be talking about it all day tomorrow on JAKIB Sports. I'll have plenty of clips up tonight from the segment, and we will look at it as well. All right. 1 second. Let me send one message to my editors here. Here is riding the bench. It's apropos. It's either boom or bust. It'll be fun. That's a good way to look at it. Good way to look at it. All right, good way to look at it. Here is what happened to Cliff. You know, RJ, I was never as high on Cliff as many. I think he's a little bit ahead of, full of himself. And I don't really think he's got all the pedigree to be a full of himself. I really don't. You know? So I'm not huge on Cliff. I'm fine with not having Cliff Kingsbury. Can we really get much worse than what we had to witness the last 3 years? Probably not. It's a good point. Here's Pump. I don't know, Z. This kind of a booty butt hire, man. Another OC for Hurts to get canned. Yeah, but Pump, here's the difference, man. This year, there's no more excuses, Pump. There's no more fire the coordinator. He's the big problem. There's no more of that. That's gone. It's gone. I'm done doing it. Are you seriously? Is everybody not tired of doing that? Really? If the offense fails again, you got to look at the common denominator. Okay? So, yeah, I'm not really buying into that, Pump. Here's David. What's up, David? Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everybody. Xander, I think they brought in someone from Green Bay to help the run game tight end play. I agree. It's a great point. Should have asked John about that. I'll put that, let me write that down for tomorrow for John. Running back, tight end improvement. David, you know what I wonder? After they hang up the phone tonight with A.J. Brown, after I just alluded that's who they should call first, maybe they ought to call Dallas Goedert. Hey, does 10 mil get it done again? Let's do it. Let's do it. Potentially. Here's Slim Reaper. What's up, dude? They've done it twice. What are you talking about, Zander? Yo, it's Zander with a Z, dumbass. The other two OCs got head coach jobs. Did you forget? Yeah, and 2 got fired. What's your point, Slim Reaper? What's your point? 2 got fired, 2 got head coach jobs. Congratulations. It's boom or bust, exactly as I stated. You going to point out where I was wrong, or are you going to yap like a dumbass in the chat? Goodbye. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Here's Abanez. What's up, brother? I like the hire that they got a potential play call in OC, but I have to see what they bring to the offseason and start a training camp. I think that's a very fair point. I agree with that. Cody says, I'm optimistic about the hire. Me too, Cody. Here's Michael. The more I explore this, the more I agree with Z. Such a complicated hire. Yes, it is. I don't need to go to that. Here's JWT. The Eagles wanted to avoid a one and done. They probably wanted some long-term commitment. I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I don't think – what's funny about this is I actually think he's a prime candidate. If we succeed, this dude's a head coach. If we succeed, this dude's a head coach. So I don't know. I don't really see it like it's a stability hire. But, guys, when you don't have a play-calling head coach, you kind of got to get out of – you kind of got to get out of, how long are they going to be here? Guys, there's 13 new offensive coordinators. That's damn near half the league, guys. That's damn near half the league. Think about that. If you succeed in the NFL, your OC goes bye-bye unless you're Kyle or Sean. That's really it. I mean, look at the Seahawks. They're in the Super Bowl. You know what's about to happen to their OC? He's gone. Clint Kubiak, he's gone. They're in the Super Bowl. They got to redo it. The Patriots, their OC would be gone too if it wasn't who it is, who's already failed as a head coach a couple times. So, a lot of ways to look at it, guys. A lot of ways to look at it. Niall says, I'm just glad the search is done. You and me both, Niall. Prince, what's up, Prince? Technically one guy. LOL, Prince. Bobo Patullo, where are you, Kevin? Kevin, where are you? Is this guy still work? Does he have an office? Has Bobo Patullo inherited the Howie Roseman broom closet? Where is Bobo? Did he move out of Philly because he's still got egg drooping down the windows? Who knows, man? Oh, man. That is classic. Stout staying. I agree. Didn't Joe Brady, young OC, replace Bills head coach McDermott? Yeah, it could. Could happen. KC, oh God, catch. KP is the new offensive coordinator mentor. Oh, goodness. Kevin is shoveling snow. It's ice now. Hey, anybody who's in the area, if you didn't shovel every drop of snow you needed to shovel when it fell, you're fucked. Everybody who's in the area knows that, right? It's ice. I mean, you walk outside, it's ice. It's all ice. It's 8 degrees outside. It's ice. Can't even get the shit up. I mean, holy crap. And it's been so cold, it didn't even melt away at all. You know, normally the snows are here for a couple of days. You know, they get a little day that's 38 and sunny and it melts. No, not this week. It's just I could ice skate out. I might break the skates out from the garage, lace them up a little bit and start skating. Holy moly. All right, guys. I'm going to catch you guys in the morning. I like the, I don't know. Am I trying? I don't feel like I'm trying to be too optimistic. If I hated the hire, I'd tell you guys. I mean, how many times have I been mean to the team and everybody gets mad? You're a fake fan. You're this, you're that. Bunch of crybabies. I like the hire. I fucking like it. I think it's a good hire. I think the dude's got good pedigree. I think the dude seemingly is a great offensive mind. Remember something I said earlier this week? I said, I hope they get somebody that sees the game and has a good offensive mind, not somebody that's so stuck in one scheme or one way. And I hope they get somebody that forces them to not live inside an echo chamber. Get somebody who's going to bring new ideas. Get somebody who's going to, and I think you got that. You got a guy who played with completely different styles of offense. You think, wait, for all the people who hated their offense last year, you think they're going to run 25 hitch plays in a game and this guy's not going to be like, guys, I played in the league for 8 years. I've been a coach for 2. I've been a part of offensive staffs with the best offensive minds in the league. That's not the best way to do this. Let's try this. Let's run this. I think he's going to say that. So I like that he's from a different system. Mannion better stay off social? Yeah, I agree with that. Philly's tough. Already, right? Catch, they're ripping them, I'm sure, already. Bunch of fucking idiots. The Eagles fans on X, I'm not saying it's every one of you, but that place is a cesspool. It's a cesspool. A bunch of dumbasses who think they know it all. What a bad combination. What a bad combination. Sig Lord said, how you not? I shoveled, Sig Lord. I'm just saying, if you missed the patch, and you didn't get it perfectly, it's now ice. Damn, Sig. Yo, Sig, does your sidewalk look like a hot sunny day? Is that what you're telling me, Sig Lord? You walk up to your front stoop, Sig Lord, you can lick the concrete? Is that what you're telling me, Sig? I didn't think so. All right? I didn't think so. All right, I love all you guys, man. I appreciate it. The Birds have hired an OC. The Birds have done it. We'll talk about it tomorrow on Birds 365. Love all you guys. Hit that like button, man. I appreciate you all being here. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.